On today's show, Kevin Durant goes dark. Where's he going to go? Is he deciding where his trade destination is? And then we'll talk about the winners and losers of free agency so far on Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. But the best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. Let us know. Where do you think Kevin Durant goes in free agency? In the trade. He's got to get traded. Where does he go? Let us know in the comments below. Joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat, the designer?
If Chet gains a lot of weight, Kenny Lofton's still going to push him around.
He will. Kenny Lofton will push anybody around. Oh my gosh, incredible. On today's show, we're getting into Kevin Durant. Chris Haynes had a report about him that said KD has gone dark. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some winners and losers of free agency so far. And of course, we got to play our favorite. We'll play Count It Up on the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Some interesting, some thought-provoking ones. And we also will have to talk about Jimmy Butler because he's always making headlines in some way, shape, or form. But let's start with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, according to Chris Haynes, has, quote, gone dark. Apparently, several stars have reached out to Kevin Durant right after he made his trade request and started to try and court him, started to try and recruit him, try to bring him home. Like, hey, come play with us, come play with me, wherever they are. And he has not responded to any of them. He's gone completely dark. And Chris Haynes said the only way he's really communicating right now is on Twitter when he replies to people, which is kind of wild. Is this a tactile move by Kevin Durant, or is this just him saying, hey, I'm going to let everything work out the way that it is. I don't have a no trade. I put out there that I want to go to the Suns, but hey, I'll go to the Raptors if it may be. Like, I'll just go wherever and play basketball. Like, maybe just don't trade with Kyrie anymore.
Yeah. I think it's probably more the latter, right? Kevin Durant's a very hands-off guy. It's not surprising to see him take a hands-off approach to thing. He's probably like, listen, I put my request in. You're either going to acquiesce to it or not. Either way, I guarantee this, Kevin Durant will be playing basketball next season. And I'm not surprised that he's responding mostly on Twitter, right? Because that's KD. I love that KD's on Twitter. If you're mad at KD on Twitter, go get off your own lawn. Like, that's how I feel at this point. Like, seeing KD on Twitter. Bro, like seeing KD on Twitter, like respond to regular people is the funniest thing in the world. And seeing him like respond to athletes, like as the athlete though, right? You got to be looking at that like, bro, I know your phone's in your hand. Answer the phone. You just tweeted 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, you just tweeted like Nets fan 8175634 and you can't respond to me.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you.
Kawhi Leonard or whoever it is, right? Like, you can't reply to me at this point.
We're starting rumors now.
I think Kevin Durant is just, I think he's just letting it play out. And I think they kind of already know. I think that right now we're just in, like, everybody knows that everyone's waiting for this move, right? Nothing else is going to, nothing else big is going to happen until this move, unless it's the Rudy Gobert trade. Nothing else big is going to happen until this move happens. And a bunch of teams are waiting. It seems like the Mavericks are waiting on some stuff with this. It feels like other teams are just waiting. Like the Suns are waiting on this whole thing. It feels like there's other teams that are just waiting on this whole thing to play out. And I think that works into the Nets' hands, right? Because they can try and play teams against each other. They can try and, up the price and all that. And I think KD's just saying, hey, we already know what the deal is. You guys already know that I want to go to the Suns. And so let's just see what happens, right? What's he gonna do? Like, how is he gonna change this all in a certain way? Because the Nets were the ones that were like, hey, we're not gonna re-sign Kyrie to this long-term deal. And he was like, okay, well then deal me somewhere else, right? Like, he's already said his piece about all this. And I don't know if he needs to say anymore. And I don't know if responding to stars or replying to stars that have reached out to him, like, does that change anything? Could it change the course of this trade at this point? Like, I don't know if the Nets are hearing that. And maybe they should, but I don't know if they are at this point.
I mean, I think you're thinking right, Barry. When we think of the tampering that goes unnoticed, you think of LeBron, right? You think of a very LeBron type move. Hey, listen, I got to recruit you here. I want to get you here. We would love to have you in this city, maybe a city that Kevin Durant hasn't even thought of, right? He said Phoenix and Miami, but maybe Kevin's not thinking. You know, I would assume that Bradley Beal's been on the phone, like, hey, there's not much money left, but come here. We'll trade everybody to get you.
Come home.
You know what I'm saying? Come home, right?
Near Baltimore.
So I think that, you know, it's probably more so on that side of it. I don't think it changes anything for the Brooklyn Nets though, right? Like they're limited to what they can do, and they're not going to take a loss on getting rid of a top 15 player. There's a lot of people that are sitting here and they're like, well, Kevin Durant's not going to play basketball. And so those people, I ask you, have you actually watched Kevin Durant and listened to him talk? He loves basketball. It's the only thing he really cares about. Kevin Durant, whether he gets moved or not, is going to come out there and play ball next season. And he's going to be out there on that court if it's with the Brooklyn Nets or not. I don't see him as one of those guys who's going to say, they didn't move me this season, so now I've got to sit out and try and collect my check. Ben Simmons, I'm sorry. I have an allergic reaction sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Excuse you.
I don't see that as a Kevin Durant move. I think that KD's like, listen, I've said my piece. I want to go here. If it doesn't work, I'm going to be on the court anyway. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah. He could come back to the Nets, and so what if he came back? What if he came back to the Nets next year? Like that team, all of a sudden, like, could he convince Kyrie to play? Is Ben Simmons like back and ready to play? Like all of a sudden, it could be Kyrie.
Emphasis on back.
Durant, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Patty Mills. They brought in Royce O'Neal. They brought in T.J. Warren. Another year of Kessler Edwards, of Cam Thomas, like some of their younger guys. Nick Claxton is returning. Like, I don't know. That team's decently good at this point. I don't know if they're competing for a title, but all of a sudden that team is pretty decent. If he just comes back and if they don't come up with a deal, like, I don't know, run it with that team and see what happens.
I think that's the thing, right? Like Brooklyn's not in a situation here where, especially if Kevin Durant, like I said, I think Kevin Durant's the player that's going to come back and play. If Kevin Durant's on the court, you've always got a chance to make a run at the NBA Finals, right? And you've also still got Kyrie Irving, you still got Seth Curry. You added T.J. Warren, who I don't really know who T.J. Warren is, right? Like, is he Bubble at Warren or is he regular Warren?
Yeah, which one is
he? You know what I'm saying? He hasn't really been healthy enough for us to see that. But I mean, if T.J. Warren's your third or fourth option, that's not a bad option to have. That's not a bad team. And also, he's a player that doesn't come in right. Like when you had Harden, KD, Kyrie, everybody's got a little bit of an ego in that situation, no matter what they say. Everybody wants their shots, right? Kevin's probably the most hands-off guy that's like, y'all cook, and then I'm going to get my shot up. TJ Warren's coming into that situation, no ego, just like, listen, I'm just happy to be here. I hope I can stay on the court for an entire season, and let's go win some games. I think that it very much like Joe Tsai said, right? Like he wants a team that's just going to be on the floor fighting every night. He might get that team with Kevin Durant.
I guess, but as long as Ben Simmons and Kyrie are on your team, are you getting the team that fights every night?
But even
are you getting that?
Take those two out of it. How do you feel about it?
Take the two of the top three players on the team.
Right. I'm saying though, right? Like say Ben Simmons has another season where like his mental stability blocks his back from dribbling basketballs. I don't know how
the chakras aren't lining up for some
You know
reason.
what I'm saying? And Kyrie has another season where he doesn't feel like Brooklyn's the place for his aura, so he doesn't want to play.
His chakras aren't lining up either.
Yeah. How do you feel about Kevin Durant, Seth Curry, TJ Warren, right? Not the same amount of wins, but I think that's still a team that goes out there and competes every night.
I guess. I just don't see it happening. Like, it's too big of a what if for me to get to that point. The Nets recently have come out, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, and said that they want high-level players and an all-star more than they want picks at this point. Do you think that's the right way to go, or should they go the Jazz way and just get as many picks as they can possible?
Well, y'all know how I feel about picks and rebuilds, right? Picks have their place when you're a good team already. If you feel like Kyrie's not going to be there, picks are pointless. If you feel like KD's not going to be there, picks are pointless, because what's the rebuild going to do? Turn you into the Oklahoma City Thunder? Yeah, that's 28 wins a year, and it's probably
going to. Did you see Chet the other night?
I like Chet.
Chet and Giddy and SGA and
what's that get you to? 35, 36, maybe. Yeah, I mean, like that's so for me, right? Like it makes sense to go after players. Now, I will say calling somebody and saying, send us Devin Booker is an interesting way to go about doing business there. Right? Like I might have said
somewhere.
I might have said, send me picks along with DeAndre Ayton, Cam Thomas, Miles Bridges, and a whole bunch of other picks in that kind of deal, which is a deal that was floated out there early on. But I don't know if I'd have started with Devin Booker. Maybe you work your way up a little bit, or maybe they're going high and working their way down.
Start high and work down. We'll see. The Kevin Durant saga continues, but we got some actual deals that happened because the moratorium was finally lifted. So we're going to talk about some of those. Who's winning free agency? Whether it be teams or players, who's losing free agency? We got the answers to those coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's impossible for your local chain auto part dealership to house all the parts that you have. So go to rockauto.com. I'm on there right now, and you can just go to, all right, BMW. You open that up. Then they have all the years from 1932. No way they got 1932 parts in here. They do. They have some parts from that you can get for a 1932 BMW something or other.
I like how you doubted it during the ad read.
I wanted to see what they had, and they have parts for a 1932 BMW 320. So you can get parts for that, or you can get one for a 2022. Then you open it up. They have all the different makes and models. You open the next one up, and then all of a sudden you see all the parts there. Transmission, heating and air, engine, cooling system, body and lamp assembly, brake and wheel hubs. They have all just different stuff. Like, let's say you lose a part, or if you need to replace something, go to Rock Auto. Replace it there instead of having to get it from a dealership or something else. Go and check it out. It's Rock Auto. Tell them that Locked On sent you in their How Did You Hear About Us box. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. It's rockauto.com. All right, Pat, we are talking about free agency. It rages on, or it's kind of came to a halt a little bit because nothing else is happening because of the KD trade that's looming. But let's talk about some winners and losers of free agency so far. And I want to start. I'm ready to start with mine. Let's first go. Winner of free agency, it makes a team a loser, but Bradley Beal is the first winner of free agency. My guy signs a 5-year, $251 million deal, which is too much for a player as on the level of Bradley Beal. Like, I'm sorry. He's not that good for that kind of a deal. The thing, though, that makes him even more of a winner is that he got a no trade clause in his contract. Like, the Wizards just kept going. Like, let's just keep going. The next step. How many incentives? Another one. Another one.
No,
like another.
That's the equivalent of don't leave me, girl.
He's the only player in the NBA with an active no trade clause in his contract. You have to have at least 8 years of service in the NBA and 4 years of service with the same team that you're signing the contract with. So, like, no one else even qualifies right now, which is pretty wild for this. Bradley Beal's a winner to me, but I think it makes the Wizards a loser.
Yes, I wouldn't disagree with you. I wouldn't disagree with you there, because who you adding, right? Who are you adding?
They had to do it.
Oh, poor Wizards. It's going to be another interesting season for you. Hey, Porzingis and Kuzma, maybe. I don't know. My first winner, I'm going to go with the 36 inches of bullhead on my back wall there. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a homerism, but actually just because of the way that the Bulls got deals done this offseason, I think that they're a winner in free agency. When you look at all the max contracts that got signed, Zach LaVine signed for $215 million. That's less than Zion Williamson. That's less than Bradley Beal. That's less than most of the teams that are on the list of players that have max contracts signed. And on top of that, Zach LaVine's in the best situation to go out next season and have a winning team. Like you just mentioned with Bradley Beal, there's not a lot of teams in there that you think, okay, yeah, next season they're going to be perfect. Jokic signed his max contract. There's a lot of question marks around his supporting cast there. Bradley Beal signed his max contract. A lot of question marks. Zion Williamson makes more than Zach LaVine if he can stay healthy. He makes $230 million if he can stay healthy. We got Zach LaVine for $215, and you get Andre Drummond in there for $3 million, Dragic in there for $3 million. Very smart deals, very frugal deals, but deals that address needs that the Bulls have. The Bulls are my first one.
That's a good winner to get him on a lesser deal, because if Zach LaVine somehow got that same kind of Bradley Beal deal, I would be saying the same thing. Like, there's no way that guy deserves that deal, and for the Bulls to get him at a lower price is a win for them. The other winner for me, Marvin Bagley Jr. III. He signed a 3-year deal, $12.5 million each season. Who are they bidding against for Marvin Bagley? Like, there's no one else that was going to give him that deal. What a winner for him to get those. All 3 seasons are fully guaranteed for him, and now he gets to try it out with the Pistons. They have Jalen Duran, but it doesn't look like they're going after Ayton, so he's going to have some playing time there as well. Like, they don't have any 4s at all, so maybe he fills in a role there for him. That's a huge winner for me, is that he gets 3 years on a bad team that's going to give him a lot of playing time, and maybe he gets to a point where he's comfortable enough and he's putting up enough numbers that he could get a bigger deal later. And I think that's just a huge win for him as a player.
Yeah, I think you got to look at that. That was a situation where they were standing in the mirror, throwing bids out there and convincing themselves to keep going up. Right, like that was an interesting one.
Well, I think teams get in this mindset of like, we gotta respect the player, right? It's like we got to show him the deal that he's gonna want, so that we bring him back next year. And like, okay, that's what we're giving you, what you're worth, right? Like, we're giving you what you're worth, even though he doesn't deserve it. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know, like, how's that helping you? I don't know. I guess they got to spend money somewhere.
Yeah, here's that leads into my second winner in this one, right? Lou Dort, you sir are the winner. You are the winner, my good sir. Securing the bag, essentially kind of getting like the modern day, right? Not to say that he's not a great defender. He comes out, he's able to knock down shots. He's an excellent player for that team. I love him on Oklahoma City. And I think Oklahoma City's kind of a winner in that as well. But let's be real, right? There's so many young players on that team. You have to spend a certain amount of money. The NBA makes you spend a certain amount of money.
They didn't last year.
Lou Dort kind of getting in on that Cristiano Felicio type deal, right? Where they're like, well, we got to pay somebody. Might as well pay this dude. At least Lou Dort's going to give you great production on the floor. I think he's going to be really good in there next to Giddey, next to Chet, next to Shea, right? And he's the guy that can be a spot-up shooter for them and knock down that 3 ball. He's really turned himself into the prototypical 3-and-D type player. Get your money, my good sir. $87.5 million, I believe, for Lou Dort. So, he's doing well out here. He's doing well.
Lou's is doing well. I got one more winner, and I think Jalen Brunson is a winner. And not just Jalen Brunson, but the Jalen Brunson family Knickerbockers, like the whole organization that worked their way to, for Leon Rose to work his way up to become a GM, and then his son to become Jalen Brunson's agent, and then for them to hire Rick Brunson as an assistant coach in the organization, and then for them to work together for Jalen Brunson to be good just at the exact point where he's going to be a free agent, where the Knicks can get enough salary cap that they can give him a 4-year, $104 million deal. Just a win for the Brunson family overall, the Rose family, everybody. Just
I'm not gonna lie to you, dog. Hey, and that means you're not gonna like one of my losers there, but it's not Jalen Brunson. I love what Jalen Brunson did. I got Jalen Brunson down as my third winner as well, because I'm all about players securing the bag, right? Anybody who's getting the big bag. The only part that I feel like a little bit of a loser is like, I don't know how many games you're gonna win on that team, right? You didn't do much.
I know
you didn't do much.
They didn't change their ceiling, but they're building their foundation with the Knicks. So I get what they're doing, but
okay, at least one of us does. Well, instead I'll jump into my first loser, right? And it is the Knicks, since we're talking about it, right? Because oh yeah, for sure.
I thought you were going to go into the Mavs on that one. Okay.
No.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
They're on the list as well, though. But no, I go in. I almost made him spit take.
Almost did a spit take just then. Don't worry. The Mavs are losers.
The reason I have the Knicks on there, right, is not because Jalen Brunson's not a good player. It's not because I don't think that he's a good get. I think Jalen Brunson is actually, he went for the going rate that you have to spend on some of these players out here, right? Fine. But the thing that I look at is how Jalen Brunson played on the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas does a great job of spacing the floor. When you've got Luke out there, when you've got Cleve out there, right? All of those guys that are out there that are able to shoot the ball, that makes such a difference in Jalen Brunson's game because he's able to get into the isolation. You want to know what the Knicks did this offseason after getting Jalen Brunson? They went and signed 2 centers. $76 million in Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein. What's your game plan here? Oh, by the way, if we're talking about space in the floor, Evan Fournier is your guy, right? Mr. Up and Down might as well be kicking it over. Never mind. That's a bad joke. Not for Locked On here.
Don't Google that, man.
you like very, very up and down shooting. There's not a lot of spacing on this floor. Hopefully RJ Barrett can continue to improve himself, but the Knicks are a loser for me.
And that those 3 guys are all left-handed. Like that's a low key.
They're all going the same way.
I'm gonna say that's a low key thing that we don't think about is that all 3 of those guys are now left-handed, and RJ, Julius Randle, and Brunson. So
yeah. That's going to be interesting to see, man. So for me, Knicks are a loser because I feel like you just spent money to win 39 games again.
It's a good loser. I got a couple more losers of free agency so far, and then we got our favorite game every single week, where we count up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. They really are. I love them. The Brownie Batter Puff is my favorite bar. It has leapfrogged the Coconut Brownie Chunk Bar, which I never thought would happen because that bar is delicious, but 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar. Only 7 grams of sugar, and let me tell you that this bar is melt in your mouth delicious. The best way that you can eat these bars, some people say freeze them. I don't think you freeze them. I think the best way is when they're like just at their melting point, like just about to melt, and they're absolutely delicious. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, the number 1, the number 5, to get 15% off your entire order. Again, LOCKED15 at built.com. All right, Pat, we're continuing on our winners and losers of free agency so far. You shared a loser. It's the New York Knicks. I got a loser, too. I'm going to the other borough. I'm traveling boroughs. And the Brooklyn Nets, their fans, have just been such losers. Like, just losers in all of this. Because of all the things, like what Joe Tsai said about wanting a team that fights, about what Kyrie and Kevin Durant came and did, like, they got to see one playoff series win. That's it. They got to see one playoff series win. They haven't seen the pinnacle of what they thought. They had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving all on their same team. They got to see him play for like 11 minutes all together. I mean, just losers. Like, I feel so bad for their fans, however many there are. And shout out to our guys on Locked On Nets. However many Nets fans there are.
What was that jab? I feel
bad for all of them.
Oh, I agree with you, right? When you think about the fact that Frank Ntilikina spent more time in New York than KD, Kyrie, and James Harden.
He probably spent more time in New York last year as a Maverick than they did altogether.
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow. I do feel bad for Nets fans, right? Because the franchise literally just keeps going, we're going all in for this, and it never works.
And
right?
especially like after the whole roller coaster this offseason specifically, where Kevin Durant or Kyrie was like, okay, he wants to go somewhere else. Okay, well then maybe Kevin Durant wants to go somewhere else too. That was a hypothetical. And then Kyrie like doesn't get his full contract, but he opts back in. And so then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well at least he's coming back. We know we're getting KD back. And then KD's like, yeah, no, dog, trade me. Like, get me out of this borough and send me to somewhere else. And man, like just the roller coaster of this offseason alone has been nuts for them.
Yeah, very, very emotional time here for Nets fans, man. Moment of silence for them. Thank you very much.
That's it.
Yeah, they don't get that much. Here's my second loser on my list, right, is somebody that a lot of people view as winners, but I just can't see it that way. The Philadelphia 76ers paid $30+ million for PJ Tucker for 3 years to do one thing.
Shoot corner
Stop
threes.
Giannis. Just stop Giannis. That's all they really have him for. Let's be real. That's all anybody signed him for since he's left Milwaukee. It's only been Miami, but still. And PJ Tucker's gonna get you there, right? Like you still, the Miami Heat did it, and then they didn't play the Milwaukee Bucks. So it didn't even matter in the playoffs. You spent a lot of money on a guy that's going to age very quickly in this NBA.
Well, and there are two moves where PJ Tucker and Daniel House, who like I don't know if you got to listen to that Utah Jazz beat writers like Twitter spaces that they had the other day with like Andy Larson and Sarah Todd and like all of them. There were not good things said about Daniel House, especially about his time in the bubble with James Harden and all that stuff. And so now he's bringing back, and maybe James Harden signed off on him, but like if those are your two moves, those are two kind of volatile moves where they could work out really terribly for you, and then all of a sudden like you didn't make any moves to improve your team at all over this season, and your best way to be better than last year is Shams' tweet about James Harden coming back and like being in shape and being ready to play. Like, okay, that's all we're putting our hope into.
And we've already seen him in the club, a little baby, like an hour after the tweet came out. Like,
hey, work hard, play hard, work hard. Come on.
That's Wiz Khalifa, bro. Close enough, though.
No, I just wanted the work hard, play hard for James. That's what James Harden does.
Yeah, that's such an interesting situation, right? Like, doesn't it feel like that's a you better win next year move? If you don't make an NBA Finals next year, you're going to look at those moves and be like, well, this is an interesting team.
I mean, they'll run it back again, but you're just counting down the how many healthy Joel Embiid seasons you're going to get.
Right. That's the part that scares me.
Another loser for me quickly is I think Donovan Mitchell's a big loser in all this because he may just get sent off anywhere, or he may just play with like a bum Jazz team next year. Those are his two options, right?
Well, yeah, I guess. Right.
What are his options?
It would. Well, I think it's about what Donovan Mitchell's commitment is to the new Jazz team. I like Walker Kessler. I think Walker Kessler is the perfect player for Donovan Mitchell.
Okay, as a rookie, Mitchell center, I don't know if he's taking him anywhere in the West.
Listen. It all depends on Donovan Mitchell, though, right? Like if Donovan Mitchell passes him the ball, like it's about what kind of team are you gonna buy into? Or, Donovan Mitchell in Miami, if that deal happens, you don't like that?
That'd be a big winner. He'd be a big winner, but he could also just go get sent to like
he gets sent to OKC.
Like Charlotte. I don't know. Like, he could get sent there. So that's what. And then I got. Do you have any more losers?
I got one more loser.
All right, give me one more.
It's y'all. Because if you're gonna go in, it's the Dallas Mavericks. If you're gonna go into the luxury tax at any point, this was the time to do it, because while I like Christian Wood being added to this team with Luka, and I'm really excited to see that dynamic,
it was a step forward.
It looks a lot better if Jalen Brunson's still on the team.
It does.
It looks a whole lot better if Jalen Brunson's still on the team. I think that could be a team. Like, I felt like when I was, there was a point where I was like, maybe Jalen Brunson goes back. I was like, Dallas might be a championship level team if Luka takes another step, Jalen Brunson takes a step, and Christian Wood's your third option. And then instantly it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe second round then. So that's Dallas is my loser in it.
I feel you. All right, my last one is the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, well, that's a different situation.
This one is completely different because Miles Bridges, his wife shares the photos of his alleged domestic abuse, and she's the actual victim, and if we're going to use the word loser, like in all of this, she is. But if we're just talking about basketball, they were going to max this guy. Like 10 days ago, Locked On Hornets was talking about giving Miles Bridges a max contract. He was going to be a big piece for them, and now all of a sudden, like they had a period of time, like 5 days in free agency, where they didn't make a single move because they're just now frozen because of this whole situation, and they can't do anything. They signed Cody Martin back. Like that's the only free agency move that they've done so far, and now they're just stuck. And he's probably not going to play for them, maybe ever again, but definitely not next year. And so the Hornets just are a basketball loser in this whole situation, and I think that's brutal for that organization.
And they brought back the same head coach who didn't establish a great rapport before.
They also lost their coach that they were going to. Yeah, that's true. Another loser. They're poorly. I hate to say it, right, because it's Jordan, but they are a poorly run organization. I know that was tough for you to say.
It hurts.
All right, let's play our favorite game every single week.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it.
Where we count up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. We talked about Kevin Durant at the top of the show. A lot of Toronto Raptors fans are having a hard time wrapping their brain around putting Scottie Barnes, second-year now player Scottie Barnes, 15 points, 7 boards, 3.5 assists last year, started every single game on a playoff team. They're having a hard time putting Scottie Barnes in a trade for Kevin Durant. I asked Sean Woodley, our Locked On Raptors host, about it, and he said he put out a poll, and he said He said 90% of his audience was against dealing Scottie Barnes for Kevin Durant.
Count it up.
Count it up. Scottie Barnes, overrated or underrated at this point? That you wouldn't even put him in a deal for Kevin Durant.
I think because of the circumstances, right? You realize he's overrated for the moment, right? Because you wouldn't add him to a deal for a top 15 player, but that's not to say that he's a bad player. It's not to say that he's going to become a overrated player. I think that his game is going to be phenomenal. I think he's going to be a really nice player in the NBA, somebody that we talk about for a long time, but we know what Toronto values, right? Toronto wants that loyalty. Toronto wants somebody that's going to be there. I wouldn't, now for me, right? In a heartbeat, I'd make the deal. But you do have to, there's something to be said about that kind of fan base, especially when there's an entire country around you. You rally around your players a little bit different than we may just in our cities and things like that. So I understand why they don't want to include Scottie Barnes in it, but that's a top 15 player in NBA history right there. You might want that guy on your team.
Scottie Barnes, to me, overrated by Raptors fans, underrated by anyone outside of Toronto or outside of Canada at this point. Like, I feel like that's where you can even it up. Chet Holmgren made waves because of his debut in Summer League where he balled out. I think he had like 13 points, 3 blocks in his first quarter of action in Summer League. So,
Count it up.
Count it up. 1 to 100. 1 being like a shoot around where it's just like dudes just like shooting around, or 100 being the NBA Finals. How much stock do you put in Summer League, especially the Salt Lake City Summer League that we're watching right now that Chet just played in?
Oh, this is my topic here. What's less than 0%?
No, one is like a shoot around where you're literally just watching dudes like just shoot.
It's not that. Okay, all right. It's not that.
Okay.
But I'll give you 20%, right? Because I've been a part of an organization that watched Tony Snell dominate. Tony Snell, the man who in multiple games has put up 0.0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 20 plus minutes multiple times in his career. Crazy stat to have, right? I've watched Denzel Valentine dominate, the same Denzel Valentine who Stacey King basically ended his career by going, "Oh no," as he jacked up a half-court 3-point shot to try and tie the Miami Heat. Like, Summer League is fun. I'll say this. Summer League is getting a lot closer to like the Drew League AAU type games. And I think that they're way more entertaining than they used to be in certain years, right? And I think this is one of the years that it's going to be a lot more fun to watch. But I put 0 stock in any of this translating into the NBA season going far. I would say 10 to 15% because I think Chet's going to be a nice player in the NBA if he adds like 30 pounds. But at the same time, I still think Oklahoma City is going to win 30 games this year.
I saw our Locked On NBA Big Board host, Richard Stamen, post on Twitter. He's at Mavs Draft. I saw him post, man, Chet is so disgustingly skilled. I can't wait to see him play in Vegas Summer League where the competition is better. And I was like, the Vegas Summer League is more competition than what we're watching right now. Like, why do we even do this Salt Lake City Summer League? Like, what's the point of this if Vegas is way better competition? I give it a 5. I give the Vegas Summer League a 5.
Yeah.
Out of 100. Literally just 4 points more than a shoot around for me. Zion Williamson signed a new deal, like you said, $250+ million, no player options or anything like that. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years, especially on Locked On Pelicans and others, of just, does Zion want to be here? Does Zion want to be in New Orleans? Does he even like New Orleans? And he had an interesting quote that I want to talk about. He said, I told the world, if you ever want to know if I want to be here, just ask me. And instead of asking me, the world just ran with narratives. My family was getting harassed by people and why we don't like New Orleans or why I don't want to be here, when that's not the case at all. All right.
Count it up.
In this day of athletes can tell their own story, social media, the Players Tribune, every player has a podcast now, like all this stuff. Is this more, this idea that this narrative that went around that Zion doesn't want to be in New Orleans, is this more on the athlete or the media? Because at a certain point, the athlete can tell their story, and I feel like Zion didn't tell his story and didn't take control of this narrative at a certain point, but the media did run with a story that wasn't even necessarily true, that was just about rumors and all that, about how, he maybe didn't like being, like, working for, like, Griffin, then that doesn't mean he hates New Orleans, right? Like the media ran with certain things there, but I think it's also up to Zion to be like, you can tell your story now at this point.
There's fault on both sides for me. There's fault on the media side, even though wasn't it his dad that said, his dad or his uncle, one of them, that said that he didn't want to be in New York? Isn't that where that whole thing started? And take it from a Chicago Bull and a Charlotte Hornet. Sometimes you got to tell your family members to shut up. As we've seen that Lonzo had to do at certain points with LeVar, always keeping it respectful and all that. But sometimes you got to be like, listen, like what he says is what he says. It has nothing to do with me. And you have to set that precedent, right? On top of that, the media does run with just any story all the time in this day and age. And I think that that's a poor use of journalism, if it's one way to say it, because
there's so much media like us that are like not journalists, and we'll just run with stories because we just see it from somewhere, and it's like we don't take the time to vet it. And like I get that we want to have talking points, but like it just becomes, there's so much.
But the problem is, right, like when it makes it to an ESPN, the problem is when it makes it to an FS1, the problem is when you're criticizing the player on a bigger stage, on a personal level. Not to say that we should get any leeway either, right? If we're running with narratives and we're not figuring out where they're coming from, that's poor work ethic on us as podcasters and as people that are putting this content out here, because people are coming to us for that information.
But all that being said, if Zion would have just posted like a picture of himself with like a king cake and like at Mardi Gras or something with New Orleans, be like, love New Orleans, like wouldn't it just have quelled a whole bunch of this stuff? It may have looked staged, but like even at least he would have shown some sign of him liking New Orleans.
Even on that side, though, right? Like Zion posted a bunch of stuff about him working out at the facility, working out in New Orleans, trying to get back in shape. And what did people say? That's not fake. Zion's 350 pounds right now. He's fat. People believed Zion Williamson was just a blimp walking around here and wasn't going to be able to get back in shape at any point. Instead of actually thinking and using the power of reasoning to say, well, yeah, he had a foot and knee and a bunch of different injuries. He's probably not moving too much. And so he's not able to lose that weight as quickly. Like there's like Zion posted a bunch of stuff. And I will say, like, literally just getting on Twitter and saying, I want to be in New Orleans could have silenced a lot of that.
The anti-Eric Bledsoe, I don't want to be here tweet.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be in New Orleans. Like that it could have silenced a lot of that. But at the same time, right, like if he's not giving you anything, to just take it and run with whatever you get is very irresponsible in my opinion.
I got two more. Jimmy Butler responded to PJ Tucker's farewell to Miami post with
I love Jimmy so much.
With FU and at Joel Embiid. Yeah, I brought him into this.
I love Jimmy so much.
Count it up.
Count it up. Which side would you rather be on in a fight, Miami or Philly right now?
Oh, Philly for sure. Come on. Well,
Miami,
you know what?
I was gonna say Miami. We got Bam. We got Jimmy. We got Haslam still.
Yeah. You know what? I might go. I'm not gonna lie to you. The fact that Joel Embiid was African was leaning a lot of it for me, but Bam is also African, so like that kind of evens it out. I think Jimmy. Like if PJ gets him down, right? Jimmy's definitely I'm gonna do anything I gotta do to win. He might bite. Right, so if you got a biter in a fight as well, like on a PJ Tucker, that plays into it. And then where's Tyler Hero in this? Right, Tyler Hero seems like a chair thrower. He seems like a chair thrower.
I was gonna say if Tyler Hero's like got a weapon on him, maybe.
Here's the thing, though. The one thing that we can both guarantee: James Harden not taking part in the fight. So they're one man short.
James Harden and the wild card. Omer Yurtseven. That center for Miami, it's over. Call it.
Yurtseven and Jovic now on the team as well. You gotta listen, don't mess with the serve.
Call it. I'm not messing with Yurtseven.
You don't mess with the serve.
I'm not messing with him at all. Him versus like Korkmaz or no. It's done. He's taken Korkmaz, Tybal, Maxey, all Shake Milton, like he's taken all of them at once.
Yeah, that goes. Is that poor roster construction? Is that what we call that? Is that poor roster construction?
Fight. There you go. That's Locked On NBA. Go check out Locked On Bulls for great stuff all the time on their free agency situation. Go check out Locked On Mavs for whatever's going to happen after Jalen Brunson finally signs his deal. There may be a sign and trade now that they haven't announced that deal. So go check it out, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.